Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. This podcast is for and about women of colour and our relationship with nature. Hosted by me, Cherie Mack. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is committed to exploring the experiences of women of colour with Mother Nature. We want to provide spaces where the hidden voices in the environmental and conservation conversations can explore their relationship with the natural world. Inspired by our time spent outdoors, we amplify the voices of women of colour, our stories, our conversations, interviews, photography, writing, and artwork. We'll be exploring our legacies, histories, and memories which have had an influence and effect upon how we perceive ourselves within the natural world and within the environmental and climate justice movements. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is a space for women, feminine, and non-binary people who are Black, Indigenous, people of colour to explore their relationship with nature. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. It's me, Cherie, and yes, there's been a couple of months gap between the solo exploration series to now releasing a number of conversations that I've been having over the last couple of months. So, haven't been not doing anything. Things have been happening behind the scenes. But, time, man, it's flying. I don't know if you're feeling it too, but it just seems like 1 minute we're starting a month and then the next minute we're finishing the month. It is so weird. But what's been happening in the space in between? Well, Earth, Sea, Love has become a community interest company. Woohoo! We said it was on the cards and it has happened. Of course, this is a slow step-by-step process, so we're now in the process, knee-deep, trying to set up the committee, the directors, the bank account, all that little nitty-gritty, but it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, Earth, Sea, Love, Community Interest Company. Awesome. And what else has been happening? Well, I just want to say about Intrinsic, coming out of Creative Countryside. This is an anthology, a new anthology of writing by women exploring our unique connection between humans and the more than human world, and I don't even want to say the natural world because there is only one world and we're all part of it. We're all one. But it has been successfully fundraised for. Eleanor Cheetham over at Creative Countryside put out a call for application submissions to this anthology of essays around this relationship. And I applied successfully and wrote an essay. Oh my gosh, it was probably this time last year it was all kicking off, all starting. So I put in an essay which is seascape, grief, grievance, and around the sea, obviously. And this is happening. There was a successful Indiegogo fundraising campaign. Intrinsic will be out in the world next month, I think, August 2022. And it gives me great joy to say that, because it was, in the balance. And there's 11 other essays in there, and I'm so looking forward to getting my hands on it. Creative Countryside, which is the publisher, they only do a short run of publications, and so I'm not sure if you can get your hands on it, but if you are interested, go to creativecountryside.com and find out about Intrinsic. So moving on, this episode is with the lovely Marcia Ley, who's a Northeast creative. And we've talked at other times for other things, and this is the first time that we've got to talk together for the podcast, Earth Sea Love podcast, around our connection with nature and how this shows up in our practice, and how we're inspired by the outside world, and how it does weave into our lives, and how we live our lives, practice our lives, and how we try to explore that connection and put it into some kind of language so we can share it with others. And it's also, it's a spiritual practice and connection that feeds our soul, definitely, but also brings that sense of freedom. This is a really beautiful conversation, and I so loved it, and how it was, it's just, there was this synergy about it. Without more babbling on from me, let's just get into this episode. Thanks for coming back to the podcast. Great to have you here, and I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, bye for now. Let's just start, Marcia. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of the Earth Sea Love podcast. Welcome. And let's just first introduce yourself. Please tell us your name, where you're calling in from, and if you can see any nature outside where you are, or around you, even inside.
Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you, Cherie, for asking me to take part in the podcast. I'm very excited. My name is Marcia Todman. Actually, no, my name is Marcia Ley. That's confusing, isn't it? I have two names, but Marcia Ley is the one that we're going to go with. And I'm an artist. I live in the beautiful northeast of England, in a little kind of like between two villages, a place called Lockarth, which is, as I say, between two villages near Rowlandsgill. The nearest place that anybody in the northeast would know would be the Metro Centre, but it's not that near there. And outside my window, I can see trees. I can see an oak tree. I can see a sycamore tree. Some wisteria. So I can see, I'm very fortunate where we are. We've got a little bit of garden that goes back and around, and then behind there's a little kind of triangle of woodland, which is what I look at, with wildlife and squirrels that come and try and eat all the nuts from the birds and that sort of thing. So, is that enough?
No, that's lovely. And let's just go back, step up, because you say you got two names. I've got two names myself. So I know my writing name is Cherie Mack, while my artist name is Cherie Angela Matthews. So I totally get two names. You might want to tell us why you got two, if you want to. But then also that links into, you said trees, and then you started to name the trees. And my question is is it important to you to know the names of trees and to know, different wildlife and flowers? Is that important to you or not?
It's quite important. Yeah, I like to know names. So, and I think I do collect them, but I wouldn't say I'm an absolute expert. So, yeah, I think if I didn't know the name of a tree, I would probably say, oh, I might look that up, or I might ask someone, what do you think that is? But just, I think I was fortunate as a kid. I just grew up with a kind of like a classroom with leaves on the wall, on a poster, I seem to think. And so, and that started it. Yeah, it's nice to name things. Simple for me. I am an artist, and as an artist, I've always been Marcia Ley. And I was Marcia Ley for a good many years. Then I got married and my name became Todman. And then I stuck with Ley for quite a bit. But when it came to school and things, I just kind of changed. So on this machine, on this Zoom, I'm actually down as Todman. Yeah. And that was why I said it. Otherwise, I would have said Ley.
Yeah. Awesome. I just find it interesting, names and naming, because it's all wrapped in to my idea of ownership and power in a sense. So that's why I wanted to know about, is it important to you to know the names? Because I oscillate between both extremes, knowing the names. Oh, definitely I need to know the names, because as you mentioned, that makes me feel like I might be an expert or I might know some stuff. But then there's sometimes it's just enough for me to be with a tree. So that's really, thank you for going on that tangent with me. I'm just interested to find out where other people stand on that spectrum. So it's interesting that you've mentioned also you're an artist. So that was the next thing. Tell us what you do, but then also, how did you get into it? Have you always been an artist?
Right. So I'm an artist. The areas I work in, it's better to be a creative these days, isn't it? So I'm a creative, but I specialise. I like to paint. I'm a sticker, so I love to stick things down. Collage, collect. I'm a collector of all sorts. I'm the sort of person who, in my coat pocket, I have shells, bits of china, leaves, interesting bits of paper sometimes. So I'm a collector, and that all goes towards my practice. And I also am a printmaker. So I print. I work with silk paint, which I love painting. I like using silk painting. It's kind of the nearest thing to meditation in a way, when you put paint onto a piece of silk. It's a wonderful experience. And I'm also a participatory artist. I work with people from all sorts of backgrounds. So I do all of that. I am a retired lecturer from Sunderland Uni as well. So that's me kind of like in a bundle. That's not really telling you what I do as an artist, is it?
But by any means, express how you want to. I mean, I love that you said that's your bundle, and also artist and maybe a creative more. And I'm interested in that, because I say I'm a creatrix, she who makes, and I do that by any means necessary. And it's a multi-genre, multidisciplinary approach, because it's a case of like, I get this energy surge and I want to create something, and I let that energy tell me how it wants to manifest itself or how it wants to flow through me. Now, does that make sense to you or not?
That makes absolute sense, actually. Yeah, I think I would perhaps call it my intuition, but I very much let that guide me. I feel my way along. I was trying to think about that, and I think I kind of like, I have nature, and creation is really what I'm inspired by, one of my big inspirations. But within that, when I'm working in my studio or wherever I am, it's like you're kind of like feeling your way along almost to a chord that you're kind of wanting to put your hands on and pull your way along. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's such a good way of saying that. Sometimes maybe, but really when you say pull, it makes you feel like you're having to exert yourself. And sometimes it is hard going, but most of the time it's not hard going. It's just allowing, it's actually a letting go in a sense, and letting things happen in a sense, and not holding on too tight. But I do like that idea of pulling along a cord. But you've mentioned nature. So let's go there and think about, how does nature inform your work then? How does it show up in your practice?
And I think I decided a long while ago that I really wanted to be able to reflect the outside world. I wanted to be able to bring it in, but I also felt that it was just too, what's the word? It was too awesome, too big, too I couldn't do it justice by just sitting down and copying it, so to speak. So I never really worked, and I haven't anything against anybody who works in a very, very realistic way. Let's put that there. But I just felt that what I needed to do was kind of find a language that would echo that. And so although my things do look, definitely they have a landscape basis, i.e. they have a horizontal line, and I use colour, and I'll often use some of the bits I found, like leaves or objects, other sorts of objects that I collect. It's not, it's more of a kind of about the way I feel about it than perhaps always what I see, although without trying to contradict myself too much. Having said that, I do go out and I do take a pencil, I do make some drawings, I make lines, and I do sometimes sit and actually draw and paint things. And they're almost like a little collection of stuff that's a foundation that I can look into. And I might not ever use them directly, but I feel they're very important. Just like being outside is very important. So you're kind of outside and you're soaking up nature, you're soaking up the environment, and then you're just, and in order to be able to have anything to say once I get into the studio, I really need to have that transaction. I really need to be outside and to experience that. And I just love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I love that. What was striking for me is that not in the literal realistic sense that you says, but it's an echo, and it's trying to find that language. And for me, it sounded like it's so difficult to say, but it's like you have that external connection or transaction with nature, which has an internal transformation, and it's trying to get that internal feeling and emotion back out into the world to share with others of how you feel with nature. Is that correct, do you think?
That's right, yeah, it is, yeah.
And that's such a beautiful, you said transaction, and I'm thinking connection in my head. That's such a beautiful connection. I feel that can only happen through the body, but also a soul spiritual level. What do you think? Because I'm right in thinking you have got a spirituality, a religion.
Yeah, I have a faith. Yeah, it's kind of old-fashioned these days, but when I was about 30, I became Christian, and I have been one ever since. And for me, it just made sense of the world. It gave me purpose and hope and all those sorts of things. And so for me, it's almost like a great big thank you for this wonderful environment, this wonderful creation within my work that I try to put in. And it is also about trying to echo some of that, I don't know. I suspect if I could put it into words, I wouldn't be painting it. So I find that a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely something spiritual. Just, that feeling of overwhelming, whoa, this is fantastic. This is just so wonderful. And I want to say thank you. And for me, it's thank you to a creator. Does that make sense?
No, that's beautiful. Honestly, I'm going to keep saying beautiful, but I know that feeling. And I can't put words on it. I just know I feel it when I feel it. And that's probably why I keep returning. My specific thing is to keep returning to the sea. And there is that thank you when I'm going into the sea. And it's almost like I've arrived, I'm here, that sort of thing. But that's, and that's not centering the eye, although it sounds like it, because once I'm there, it's almost I forget about that eye. And I could become insignificant within that universe, that massive, expansive space. I become insignificant, but not in a way that I'm devalued or I'm nothing. It's like being that me and something else all at the same time. And to actually be able to express that in my work is the exploration, I think, is the practice, why I keep showing up and exploring it and trying to hone that language somehow. So I totally relate to what you're saying. Thank you. Just thinking about Christianity and the environment. And one of my friends was saying that they were a bit frustrated at this moment in time because of what their particular church was or wasn't doing for their environment and climate justice and climate crisis. Is this something that you're feeling or showing up, or have you thought about it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, I've thought about it. I've joined something, and I'm officially a wild Christian.
Ooh, I like that. Tell me more.
So it's a green movement by a group called awesomeness, and basically they just look at ways to tread more lightly on the earth. And for how churches can do that as well. And although my church has done it in some ways in terms of things like just little things like paper cut, sort of recycling and make sure that all of that stuff's done. But there's very much more that you can do. So yes, I am a little bit frustrated, but I am hopeful that churches as a whole will really take this on board, because everybody needs to take it on board. We all need to. The 3 R's, don't we? We all need to reduce, reuse, and recycle. We all need to tread lightly.
Thank you for sharing that. And we hope you don't think I was prying there. It was just, all these things interest me. That's why I do these podcast conversations, because it is stuff that I find that itching me or rubbing up against me or making me curious. I think that's what it is. I'm a curious-minded person. I am. So bearing that in mind, I know you just come back from travels or moving your body outside. Would you like to share with our listeners what you've been up to lately, please? Because it's inspiring, I find.
Oh, it's been fantastic. I got back on Monday. So I just love cycling. I think I got my first bike when I was 4 years old, and I have, other than when I was pregnant with my first baby, and I could no longer cycle because my belly was too big. I had to stop for a while then, and then I had to stop for a bit whilst getting all sorted. But I have been on my bike as much as I can, and so I've continued to do that. I'm now a woman in my 60s, and I have some friends. And over the years, we're all about the same age, we have been working our way down Scotland. So we started off at John O'Groats. We had a brief visit up to Orkney a few years ago, because when one of us had a significant birthday, shall we say. And then since then, we've been working our way down with a gap over COVID. So the last couple of years we haven't. So this was our getting back. And what we do is we get a train. I just love it. So we get a train and another train and another train and another train. And this time the train went to Kilmarnock. And then from there, we cycled a little bit to a place called Adrosham, I can't pronounce that, and got a ferry across to Campbelltown. And from Campbelltown, we cycled via other places to Oban. And it was fantastic. You were out there, and it was extremely hilly.
You think?
The hills are good. I mean, if you like cycling, you have to accept that there are hills. Yeah. There were perhaps a little too many hills once or twice on this journey. But the great thing about cycling is that you just got to be not too proud about getting off and pushing if it's too steep.
Exactly. I mean, that's wonderful. And so you're saying it was hilly. So what was the weather like? Because this is Scotland, and how many miles would you cover a day, and where were you sleeping overnight? Or how long were you away for?
We were away 5 nights, I think, 5 days maybe, 5 days, 4 nights, and we were covering about 40 miles a day on the long days. And just the first day, so we did 40 odd miles for 3 days, and on the shorter day we did maybe 20 odd plus cycling from my house to the station. So overall, I reckon about 150 miles we cycled. It's great. I mean, the thing I love about cycling is that it's the right speed for me to be able to take things in. So it's the right speed to look at things. And so this time, we when you're working your way up a hill, you're thinking about various things. And this time we thought of words. And so I made a little list of words of the things that had kind of just made us laugh and the things that we were fighting with. So would you like to hear some?
Oh my gosh, yes, please.
So I have cadence, garrulous, panache, because I figured on day 2 that we would get some panache, a liturgical door, arduous, flat, and these are from my friends as well, passing place, dappled. And then we had Mexican porridge, a paint kettle. We had a black Mercedes coupe because of somebody we met. We met somebody in a hostel, this remarkable woman. She was just lovely. And she spent her life traveling from one festival. I'm trying to think what it was. She called it indie. So it was like a mixture of traditional Highland music, I guess, with indie music. And she was quite an old lady, quite an old woman, but she spent her time traveling from one festival to another festival to another festival because she loved dancing, and she drove a Mercedes black coupe. And I know that really this is not, all the kind of, as I've talked about, green issues, but hey, I really took my hat off to her. So she's down there like that. I had a squashed skink, which is a kind of a sort of a bit like a lizard. They're very, very beautiful. And I've only ever seen them dead because I think they're very shy, which is a bit of a shame. A cartographer, because my friend Rachel guided us so beautifully. I had a mojo, lost and found. I lost mine and Rachel found hers. Precipitation, because yes, it was Scotland, and yes, it did rain. And we had the wind. I had many other words, but that's just a little selection. And I was going to try and maybe make a little book with pictures of those.
You must.
Or pictures and a word, maybe, just to make it. So I'm not a poet, but it just, I also had dreadnought, because I was so dreading the hills one day when I'd had a look at the profile that we were going to face. And I thought, no, you've got a dreadnought. So we had a dreadnought.
Dreadnought?
Yes, a dreadnought.
Dreadnought. Oh.
Yeah.
Because when you first said it, I thought it was like, it must be some kind of naval knot, dreadnought.
Yeah. And also cairns, because, I'm not going on about this. We found one part we were in, Kilmartin, has 200 ancient sites. So standing stones, cairns, 5,000 years old. Can you imagine it? And you could get into these places. So that was a bit of a slow end of the day. We'd nearly done all of our cycling, and then we kind of nipped off into these cairns that were just fantastic to see. Anyway, shall I shut up now?
I love cairns. I've written about them because in Iceland, coming out of the airport, they have them dotted alongside the motorway. But they look like people greeting you as you're coming into the place. It's so I totally I don't know, it's something magical. And I think there is, for me, a bit of not understanding. So there's that mystery with it. Again, it just feeds my wonder. And I think that is what nature does as well. It's like, it makes me feel like a kid again. Just how it opens you up to whatever possibilities, and that dread not. If you think when you were a kid, there isn't that dread. You're just like so full of joy and just rushing out into the world and taking in whatever with wonder and curiosity. And I think that what you just described about that cycling trip with these I don't want to say if they were all women or ladies if they identify as such, but you know what I mean, like, that's freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That's how I felt. And we all need that in our lives. And if we can foster that and cultivate it within our day-to-day lives, I think we could move through this world with so much more grace and love for ourselves and each other. So yes. I love that. Thank you. I learned to ride a bike late in life. Maybe I was at university, like 21.
Okay.
And that's basically because we didn't have the money for a bike, so I couldn't get them. And it was who's still my mate now, 30 years later, Alex, who taught me how to ride a bike. We're in our first like squat together as students. And I must say, I do like the wind in my face when I'm riding, but I do it slow and steady. So I'm glad to think that at the end of a long day that you stopped and enjoyed the cairns and slowed down and took it all in. Because that's the whole point, I think, of doing it, not for getting for as far as you can as possible in as little time, is to, enjoy the journey. That's what I say. Enjoy the journey. So
for me, there's no point in doing hundreds, a lot of miles in a day, because it is absolutely about enjoying it and taking it all in.
Yeah.
And although the ups are hard work, the downs are absolutely fantastic as well.
Yeah, that's where that wild freedom comes into it, definitely. Did you do any squealing? Because I seem to do a lot of squealing on the down.
I think the thing that I squeal the most at is sometimes on a when you're cycling, if you get it just right with your gears, you go down a little bit, and then if you get the down absolutely right and you get your momentum right, you go up to the top of a little hill. So you kind of have this up and down without having to pedal too much. And whenever any of us, I think, got to one of those and managed to get down, managed to go downhill and up the other side, there would always be a little bit of a woo.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that just what you described is moving what we just talked about that creative flow. When we get into it, it takes woohoo. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Just a few more questions while I've still got you. Now, let's just thinking about, we've talked about the future when you're involved in this green group, green movement with your church. So thinking about your own practice, what you're doing at this moment, and I don't want to say working on either, I just say practice, because working has like certain values and connotations to it. So what are you practicing at the moment personally?
Yeah. So because I have I recently retired from my main job, I've had a bit more time, so I've really made myself stop and think about what it is I want to do, because I feel I've still got stuff I want to do. I've still got stuff I want to make. On one side, I've got a little printing press. So with my printing press, I've been looking at mainly lino, and I've been making an aviary very slowly. And I mean by that a collection of birds. So bit by bit, I've been making lino cuts of birds that are based on medieval birds, because I just kind of like the colours and the way that the medieval words saw them. So I'm working on these birds slowly. I've just done a swan that I'm not very happy with, actually. I'm going to redo it. Mm-hmm. So that's one side, and they're not realistic, but they're a bit more, perhaps a bit less abstract. And then on the other side, I'm just looking at, there's a field that I walked in. I might have said this to you before. There was a field I walked in over lockdown that I thought this is my sanctuary. This is where I come to. So I'd been thinking about the word sanctuary and thinking about how I might do paintings to do with the outdoors about that. Mm-hmm. So I've been playing around with that and trying to get that to work, with some success and without some other success. And I feel that I'm just getting there. And what you were saying about you almost have to. I was saying you need to pull yourself along, and you're right. It has to be. You almost have to go with the flow. But in order to go with the flow, you kind of have to. It's almost quite hard to get to the point where you let go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm at that point of doing that. So I've been painting these pictures that are sort of like being in a field. They're always warm. My husband teases me that I can't paint anything that's other than full of kind of bright, heat-filled, beautiful places. And I do actually try to take colour out of my palette sometimes just to see what happens. But somehow it always creeps back in, that kind of beautiful Mediterranean cerulean blue and oranges and things. I'm not sure I've altogether answered your question there.
No, you have. You have. And you've like, my interest has been piqued here. It's a case of like, why? I asked the question, why do you have to take color out? Because I'm a color lover and I know it brings me joy. I get joy from just smearing color paint across the page, which I was doing before we started chatting, because it just shifts my mood, my energy, and it brings me joy. So the question is, why should you stop using color? And the second thing was sanctuary. That, just that word brings over a calm and peace for me. But again, I feel for me it has religious and spiritual connotations. And then also it makes me think of my sanctuary was coming home from London. And they say coming home, I used to live there, I worked there, I started to teach there, had first baby there, but it was still coming home to my mum and her home and letting her look after me. That was my sanctuary until she died. So that's a really strong and emotional concept that you're working with. And to have that sanctuary outdoors is a blessing, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I feel it. I kind of describe it as nothing on your back. Oh, I feel that on my bike as well. You've got nothing on your back. It's it's all been put down. It's a sort of a freedom, which I love. Yeah. There is something else actually that I'm interested in my work, and I don't quite know how to put it. I was thinking about it, and it's simply that I suppose while I've talked about cairns, I'm really interested in how, how humankind has interacted with nature and how nature gets its own back. So you have things like just little bits of industrial architecture. Near where I live, there's a place called Blade and Burn, and it's got all of these mills that were built through probably from about 1700s through, and they're all hidden. So they're kind of like, there's a bit of stone here, there's a bit of, so it's kind of industrial, not altogether pretty, but really, really beautiful, the way that nature's just taken its way around. And I like that relationship too. And that's one of the things that I would perhaps put in. I like the kind of the absurdity of humans, I'll just do this. and then nature gets its own back. So yeah, that's another thing I would say that I'm interested in as well in these pictures.
Yeah. And when you think, when you say nature gets its own back, and there's two ways, well, there's a number of ways of looking at it. Gets its, in a sense, revenge in a sense, but then also gets its own back. It's like nature looks after itself,
Oh, that's really good. I'm going to make a note of that. I've got a little thing to write down.
And that's so much wisdom we can take from that, because if we were taking that message from nature in its true sense, we would be looking after ourselves, i.e. that means everybody, ourselves, including nature and plants, and instead of just looking after ourselves in a selfish sort of way. And that's why we're in this position that we are now, that, as you say, that absurdity that we think that we can control, dominate, exploit nature and not face the consequences or the repercussions or face the damage that we are doing. And then what you were just saying there, nature gets its own back. What was the other thing that I was going to say there? Because, in the sense, like when we die, we do go back, don't we, to nature. We go back to where we came from, which is nature. Either we buried, or we, ashes, or we got sea, or we go into the air, So yeah, it gets its own back eventually, including us. So yeah, we have come to the end, I think. But is there anything you'd like to share or let our listeners know about offerings that you've got on? Or because you mentioned that printing press, and wasn't this going to be open to people to use or participate, or that community spirit still?
Yeah, I started something called the Garden Press, and I've been thinking about how I might make that work. At the moment, I haven't got very far. Before lockdown, I did run little opportunities for people to come and do things with gardening. It's teeny weeny. You can only get 2 or 3 people in, and it's in my plan to do that again and maybe invite people. I would quite like to. I'm going to need some help, but I would quite like to maybe apply for some money so that I can have people to come in and I don't have to charge them. It sounds daft, but I don't really want to charge people. But obviously there are costs, and so I need to kind of work a way around that. But I would just love to be able to do that and have people come in maybe and experience a day, because there's nothing like doing a bit of lino or doing a bit of I'm trying to think, collar types or monoprinting, and you can do it really easily. And I've worked an awful lot of people in the community, and I really, really want to find people's creativity, because everybody has a creativity. I worked for many years on a hospital project where I was working with patients and carers in a cancer unit, and so many people would say, "Oh no, the only kind of painting, I can do painting and decorating, but I'm not creative." And I'd really try and just pick out that creativity in them and just say, you have, what do you do? Do you put your kids' drawings up on the wall? Well, you're using your creativity. Do you bake? Do you knit? Do you all of those sorts of things? I don't have to tell you, I'm Imagine. So that's one of my passions, yeah. And that's what I'd like to do.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to just say thank you for your time, Marcia. It's been lovely talking to you. I just go away with more questions myself, not because you haven't answered my questions, because I just love the richness of the conversations that we have. And this was just another example of the richness and how we connect in different ways with nature, and how that does support us as we move through this world. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cherie. And I've just loved listening to the podcast. I've been working my way through it, and it's just been such a blessing. So thank you.
Thank you.